Touch me again, and my father ends your career." The crack echoed through Providence Municipal Court. Sheriff Deputy Marcus Webb stumbled back. His cheek burned red. 23-year-old Isabella Marchetti stood trembling with rage, her hand still raised. She had just slapped a sworn officer of the court. In front of Judge Frank Caprio, on camera. What Isabella didn't know, what she couldn't possibly imagine, was that her father had made a phone call 72 hours earlier. A call that would shatter every assumption she had built her life upon. Mayor Vincent Marchetti had said 5 words that no one in this courtroom expected. Let her face the consequences. The case that brought Isabella here was already serious. She'd run a red light at 53 miles per hour in a school zone. 2 children had been in the crosswalk, 8-year-old Maya Torres and her 6-year-old brother David. They'd made it across with less than 2 seconds to spare. Their crossing guard, retired teacher Patricia Coleman, had filed a formal complaint. Isabella had screamed at her that morning, called her an old hag who should move faster. But now, in the space of 3 seconds, she had escalated from reckless endangerment to assault on a peace officer. Tell us where you're watching from, because what happened next in this Providence courtroom became one of the most watched moments in the history of All Rise. The clock showed 10:17 a.m., Thursday morning. Case number 2025 MUN 4429 had just become something far more serious. And a young woman who believed her last name made her untouchable was about to discover what accountability actually looks like. Sheriff Deputy Webb touched his cheek. Then he looked at Judge Caprio. The courtroom was silent. Judge Caprio removed his glasses slowly. He set them on the bench with deliberate precision. "Miss Marchetti, I'm going to give you one opportunity to apologize to Deputy Webb before I add assault on a peace officer to your existing charges." Isabella's chin lifted. "I'm not apologizing for anything." He grabbed my arm. "He was directing you to the defendant's table, Miss Marchetti. That is his job. His job is to serve my father's city, not to manhandle me. Miss Marchetti, this is your final warning. My dad is the mayor. Do you understand that? The mayor. One phone call and you're— Miss Hart, please add assault on a peace officer and contempt of court to the defendant's charges." The clerk nodded grimly and began typing. 10:18 a.m. Assault on peace officer added to charges. Contempt of court added. Defendant showing no remorse. Deputy Webb confirmed uninjured but visibly shaken. "This is ridiculous," Isabella said. "My father will end this hearing in 5 minutes." "Your father isn't here, Miss Marchetti." "He will be. And when he arrives, you'll understand exactly how much trouble you're in." Judge Caprio studied the young woman in front of him. 23 years old. No prior criminal convictions. But a pattern in her file that painted a troubling picture. Complaints dismissed. Incidents buried. A lifetime of problems that had mysteriously evaporated before they could become consequences. "Let me read your original charges, Miss Marchetti. Ms. Hart?" The clerk adjusted her microphone. "Case number 2025 MUN 4429. Original charges: reckless endangerment of minors, failure to stop at a red light, excessive speed in a school zone, verbal harassment of a crossing guard. Additional charges as of 10:18 a.m., assault on a peace officer, contempt of court." "Those charges are fake," Isabella said. "The light was yellow, and that crossing guard was being dramatic. The traffic camera shows the light was red for 4 full seconds when you entered the intersection. Cameras malfunction. This one didn't." The confidence in Isabella's voice was performance. Judge Caprio had spent decades reading defendants. He could see the fear underneath the bravado. This was a young woman who had never faced a situation her father couldn't fix. The unfamiliarity of accountability was making her desperate. "Miss Marchetti, let me ask you something. When you struck Deputy Webb, what did you think would happen?" "I thought he'd back off." And when he didn't? I figured my dad would handle it like he always does. How exactly does your father handle situations like this? Isabella smiled. It was the kind of smile that suggested she was sharing a joke only powerful people understood. My dad controls this courthouse. He controls the police. He controls everything in this city. One word from him and problems disappear. Subscribe if you still believe respect belongs in court, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Judge Caprio opened a folder. Ms. Hart, would you please read the text message submitted as evidence? The clerk cleared her throat. Text message from Isabella Marchetti to contact labeled Jess, sent this morning at 9:52 a.m. Heading to court. Some deputy thinks he can tell me what to do. I'll remind him who runs this city. My dad will bury him if he tries anything. Isabella's smile flickered. That was a private conversation. It was submitted as evidence by an anonymous source. The question is whether it accurately reflects your intentions this morning. I didn't mean I was going to hit him. What did you mean, Miss Marchetti? Isabella was quiet for the first time since the hearing began. I asked you a question. I meant I would make sure he knew who I was, who my father was. And you believe that would protect you from consequences? It always has before. The side door opened. A man walked into the courtroom. He was in his late 50s, with the posture of someone accustomed to podiums and press conferences. But today his shoulders curved inward. His face carried an expression Isabella had clearly never seen before. Mayor Vincent Marchetti looked broken. Your Honor, he said quietly. May I approach? You may. The mayor walked past his daughter without looking at her. Isabella's confident posture crumbled. Dad? Dad? What are you doing here? Did you come to stop this? He didn't respond. 10:31 a.m. Mayor Vincent Marchetti enters courtroom. Defendant appears confused. Mayor requests permission to observe and address the court. Dad, tell them who I am. Tell them this is all a misunderstanding. Mayor Marchetti finally turned to face his daughter. Isabella, I need you to be quiet and listen. Not argue, not explain. Listen. But I said listen. The word cracked through the courtroom like a whip. Isabella fell silent. Judge Caprio watched the exchange carefully. Mayor Marchetti, you said you wanted to address the court. I'll give you that opportunity after we hear testimony from Deputy Webb. Deputy Webb, please take the stand. Sheriff Deputy Marcus Webb raised his right hand. Ms. Hart administered the oath. Deputy Webb, can you describe what happened when you attempted to direct Miss Marchetti to the defendant's table? Yes, Your Honor. Miss Marchetti entered the courtroom at approximately 10:15 a.m. She was speaking loudly on her phone and did not acknowledge the bailiff's instruction to turn it off. I approached her and quietly asked her to end the call and take her seat at the defendant's table. She told me not to tell her what to do. I repeated the instruction, gently touching her elbow to guide her in the correct direction. That's when she struck me across the face with an open palm. What did she say immediately after striking you? She said, "Touch me again, and my father ends your career." Had you been aggressive with her in any way? No, Your Honor. I touched her elbow with minimal pressure. It's standard procedure for directing defendants. How long have you been serving this court? 14 years, Your Honor. Have you ever been accused of excessive force? Never. Have you ever been physically assaulted in this courtroom? Deputy Webb paused. Not until today. Judge Caprio made a note. Thank you, Deputy Webb. You may step down. The deputy returned to his position near the side door. His cheek was still faintly red. Ms. Hart, I understand we have recorded evidence from the incident involving the school zone? Yes, Your Honor. Traffic camera footage from the intersection of Westminster and Broad. Please play it. The courtroom screen flickered to life. The timestamp read 7:47 a.m., 3 days prior. 2 children stood at the crosswalk. A crossing guard held up her stop sign. The traffic light was clearly red. Isabella's silver convertible appeared from the right side of the frame. It didn't slow. It accelerated. The children stepped into the crosswalk. The car came within feet of them. The crossing guard pulled them back. The car sped through without stopping. The footage ended. Silence filled the courtroom. "That crossing guard is Patricia Coleman," Judge Caprio said. "She's worked that intersection for 11 years. She submitted a statement to this court." "Ms. Hart?" The clerk read from the document. "I have never been so frightened in my life. Maya and David Torres were following my signal. They had the right of way. That vehicle came so close I felt the wind from it. If I hadn't pulled them back, they would be dead. The driver didn't brake. She didn't even slow down. When I caught up to her at the next light, I told her she'd almost killed 2 children. She called me an old hag and told me to get a real job. Then she drove off." Isabella looked away. "Miss Marchetti, do you dispute any of what we've just seen or heard?" "The light was yellow when I entered. The timestamp shows it was red for 4 full seconds. I didn't see the kids." "That's exactly the problem. You weren't looking." Judge Caprio leaned forward. 2 children, 8 and 6 years old. You came within seconds of ending their lives. And when confronted, you verbally abused a woman who has dedicated over a decade to keeping children safe." Isabella said nothing. "Ms. Hart, do we have the responding officer's report?" "Yes, Your Honor. Officer Teresa Lynn responded to Mrs. Coleman's call. Officer Lynn attempted to pull Miss Marchetti over 2 blocks from the incident. According to her report, Miss Marchetti refused to stop for 6 blocks. When she finally pulled over, she immediately stated that her father was the mayor and that Officer Lynn should think very carefully about her next move." Body cam audio excerpt. Officer Lynn, 7:53 a.m. "Ma'am, you ran a red light in a school zone and nearly struck 2 pedestrians. I need to see your license and registration. Do you have any idea who my father is?" "Ma'am, I need your documentation." "My father is Vincent Marchetti, the mayor of this city. 1 phone call and your badge is gone. Ma'am, please provide your license and registration. You're making a huge mistake. My father owns this city." The audio ended. Judge Caprio removed his glasses and cleaned them slowly. "Miss Marchetti, let me make something very clear. Your father does not own this city. He serves it. There's a difference. One you're about to learn. If you believe justice should apply to everyone equally, subscribe to All Rise and tell us where you're watching from." "Your Honor," Mayor Marchetti stood. "May I address the court now?" "Please proceed." The mayor stepped forward. His hands were clasped in front of him. "Your Honor, I owe this court an apology and an explanation. For 23 years, I have protected my daughter from the consequences of her actions. When she was suspended from high school for cheating, I convinced the administration to remove it from her record. When she vandalized a neighbor's property at 17, I paid for the damage and had the complaint withdrawn. When she crashed her first car while texting and injured the other driver, I settled quietly and made the police report disappear." He paused. "I told myself I was being a good father. I told myself I was protecting my family. But I was wrong. I was teaching her that she was above accountability. I was creating the person you see in front of you today." Voicemail transcription. Mayor's office to court, 3 days prior. "This message is from the office of Mayor Vincent Marchetti. The mayor wishes to make clear that he will not be intervening in case number 2025 MUN 4429. Any suggestion that the mayor's office has attempted to influence this proceeding is false. The mayor requests that his daughter be treated exactly as any other defendant would be treated." He further notes that he is deeply troubled by her behavior and supports whatever ruling the court deems appropriate. Judge Caprio read the transcription aloud. Isabella's face went white. "Dad, you didn't. You said you'd fix this. I said I'd handle it. And this is how I'm handling it. By abandoning me? By finally being the father I should have been from the beginning." The courtroom was silent. 10 seconds passed. 15. 20. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. Not the calculated tears of manipulation, but the genuine tears of someone whose entire worldview had just collapsed. "Dad, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "You did mean to, Isabella. That's the problem. You meant to hit him because you thought it wouldn't matter. You thought I would make it go away like I've made everything else go away. Your Honor," the mayor continued, "there's something else you should know. Something I've never told Isabella. Please. My father, Isabella's grandfather, was a sheriff's deputy. He served Providence for 32 years. He was assaulted twice in the line of duty. Once by someone who thought their family connections would protect them." Isabella looked up. "Grandpa was a deputy? You never told me that." "Because I was ashamed. Not of him. Of myself. Of what I'd become. My father taught me that public service means sacrifice. That authority is a responsibility, not a privilege. And I failed those lessons. I raised a daughter who slaps peace officers because she thinks her last name makes her untouchable." 10:47 a.m. Mayor Marchetti reveals family law enforcement connection. Defendant visibly shaken. Courtroom remains silent. Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair. "Miss Marchetti, I want you to understand what has just happened. Your father, the man you believed would protect you from any consequence, has publicly asked this court to hold you accountable. He has revealed that he has spent 23 years enabling behavior that he now recognizes as destructive. And he has connected your treatment of Deputy Webb to a family legacy of service that you knew nothing about." Isabella wiped her eyes. "I didn't know about any of it." "Would it have changed what you did?" I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. That uncertainty is the problem, Miss Marchetti. You should treat people with dignity regardless of their background. Not because they might be connected to someone you care about, but because they're human beings who deserve respect. Judge Caprio turned to his notes. "I've heard enough to make a ruling. Miss Marchetti, I'm finding you responsible on all charges. Reckless endangerment of minors, failure to stop at a red light, excessive speed in a school zone, verbal harassment of a crossing guard, assault on a peace officer, and contempt of court." Isabella nodded slowly. She no longer had the energy to object. "The assault charge is the most serious. You struck a peace officer, a man who has served this court faithfully for 14 years, because you believed you were above the rules. That belief ends today." He paused. "Deputy Webb, would you like to make a statement?" The deputy stepped forward. "Your Honor, I've been doing this job for a long time. I've been yelled at, cursed at, threatened. But I've never been physically assaulted in this courtroom until today." He looked at Isabella. "I don't want revenge. I want her to understand that I'm a person. That I have a family, a life, dignity. That I'm not just an obstacle between her and whatever she thinks she deserves." Sentencing timeline. Case 2025, MUN 4429. Days 1-7. Written apology to Deputy Webb and Patricia Coleman. Court reviewed. Days 1 to 120. 180 hours community service. 90 hours with school safety programs. 90 hours with youth traffic safety education. Days 1 to 60. Complete courthouse respect and conduct program. Immediate, $1,600 fine. $800 suspended pending completion of requirements. Day 120. Follow-up hearing to assess compliance. Here is what I'm ordering, Judge Caprio said. First, you will write letters of apology to both Deputy Webb and Mrs. Coleman. Real letters, your own words, your own understanding of what you did and why it was wrong. These letters will be reviewed by the court before they are delivered. Yes, Your Honor. Second, you will complete 180 hours of community service. 90 hours with school safety programs. 90 hours with youth traffic safety education. Not administrative work. Direct service. You will spend time with the people who protect children every day and learn what real service looks like. I understand. Third, you will complete a courthouse respect and conduct program. You will learn how courts function, why they matter, and what it means to treat officers of the court with basic human dignity. Okay. Fourth, you will pay a fine of $1,600. I'm suspending $800 of that fine pending successful completion of your other requirements. If you fail to complete them, you'll pay the full amount plus additional penalties. Yes, sir. Finally, you will return to this courtroom in 120 days for a follow-up hearing. At that hearing, I will assess your compliance, your attitude, and your transformation. Do you understand all of these terms? I do, Your Honor. Good, because I want to be very clear about something. If you fail to complete these requirements, if you show disrespect to any crossing guard, any peace officer, any person during your service, you will return to this courtroom in handcuffs. And the conversation we have then will be very different from the one we're having now. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Isabella Marchetti had ever experienced. She showed up at the Providence School Safety Coalition on her first day expecting hostility. She found it. Word had spread about who she was and what she had done. The crossing guards didn't care about her father's position. They cared about the fact that she had nearly killed 2 children and then verbally abused one of their own. Case follow-up log. Week 2. Defendant has completed 14 of 180 required hours. Initial attitude described as defensive but present. Staff notes defendant seems uncomfortable with direct contact with children. Assigned to equipment maintenance for first 3 weeks. They gave her a vest and a stop sign. For the first 3 weeks, Isabella stood on corners during morning and afternoon shifts. She held the sign. She directed traffic. She was invisible to most people. Just another person in a reflective vest doing work most drivers didn't think about. It was humbling in a way she had never experienced. By week 4, something shifted. Patricia Coleman, the crossing guard Isabella had verbally abused, approached her during a break. "You're Vincent's daughter." "Yes, ma'am." "You called me an old hag." Isabella looked down. "I did. I'm sorry. I was wrong." Patricia studied her for a long moment. "Sorry is a start, but sorry doesn't mean much unless something changes." "I know." "Do you?" "Because I've been doing this job for 11 years. I've had people yell at me, flip me off, threaten me. But I keep showing up because Maya and David and every other kid who crosses that street deserves to get home safely." "Mrs. Coleman, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know that I understand now what I put you through. What I almost did to those kids." Patricia nodded slowly. "We'll see." By week 8, Isabella had been reassigned to youth traffic safety education. She sat in elementary school classrooms and listened to instructors teach children about crosswalks, traffic lights, and pedestrian safety. One afternoon, a second grader named Emma raised her hand. "My mom says some drivers don't stop even when the light is red. Is that true?" The instructor glanced at Isabella. "Yes, Emma, that's true. And that's why we always look both ways, even when we have the right of way." Emma frowned. "That's not fair. We're following the rules." "You're right. It's not fair." Isabella felt her throat tighten. She raised her hand. Can I say something? The instructor nodded. Emma, you're absolutely right. It's not fair. And I want you to know that I was one of those drivers who didn't stop. The classroom went quiet. I ran a red light in a school zone. I almost hit 2 kids who were crossing legally, and I didn't even apologize. I thought the rules didn't apply to me because my dad is the mayor. But I was wrong. The rules apply to everyone. And I'm here because a judge is making sure I learn that lesson. Emma looked at her seriously. Are you sorry? Yes, more than I can explain. Are you going to stop at red lights now? Every single one. Emma seemed to consider this. Okay. Good. Week 12 brought the meeting Isabella had been dreading. Maya and David Torres. Their mother, Carmen Torres, had agreed to bring them to a supervised meeting at the school safety office. Isabella sat across from them in a small conference room. Her hands were shaking. Mrs. Torres, Maya, David, I don't really know where to start. Carmen Torres looked at her with an expression Isabella couldn't quite read. Not anger, not forgiveness, something in between. Start with why you're here. I'm here because I almost killed your children. Because I ran a red light doing 53 miles per hour in a school zone. Because I cared more about getting wherever I was going than I cared about their lives. Maya, the 8-year-old, spoke quietly. I remember that day. The car was really loud. Mrs. Coleman pulled us back really fast. I was scared. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, Maya. You had every right to be scared. What I did was unforgivable. Are you in trouble? David, the 6-year-old, asked. Yes, I am. The judge gave me a punishment. I have to work with crossing guards and teach kids about traffic safety. Is it working? Carmen asked. Isabella paused. Yes, it is. I'm not the same person I was 12 weeks ago. Good, Carmen said. Because my children matter. Every child matters. And no one's last name should put them at risk. Should every reckless driving case include community service? Tell us what you think below, and let us know where you're watching from. 120 days after her initial hearing, Isabella Marchetti returned to Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom. She looked different. Not dramatically. No Hollywood transformation. But the arrogance was gone. The entitlement had faded into something quieter, more uncertain, but also more real. Miss Marchetti, Judge Caprio said, I see you've completed all terms of your sentence. 180 hours of community service, the fine paid, the courthouse program completed, the letters delivered. Yes, Your Honor. The reports from the School Safety Coalition say you continued volunteering after your required hours were complete. Is that accurate? Yes, sir. I still go 4 mornings a week. I work the crossing at Westminster and Broad. Mrs. Coleman's corner. Yes, she's teaching me a lot. About traffic safety? About everything. Judge Caprio studied her for a moment. Tell me what you've learned, Miss Marchetti. Isabella took a breath. I learned that I spent 23 years believing my last name made me special, that rules were suggestions, that people in service jobs existed to accommodate me. I learned that Patricia Coleman stands on a corner in all weather protecting children she doesn't even know. That Deputy Webb has been assaulted, threatened, and disrespected, but he shows up every day because the court system only works if people like him maintain order. That Maya Torres still has nightmares about cars. She paused. I learned that privilege isn't something you own. It's something you're responsible for. And I learned that I'd been using mine as a weapon instead of a tool. Mayor Vincent Marchetti was in the gallery. He stood slowly. Your Honor, may I address the court? Please. The mayor walked forward. 4 months ago, I stood in this room and admitted that I had failed my daughter. That I had spent 23 years protecting her from consequences. and that it had made her worse instead of better. He looked at Isabella. I want to say publicly that I'm proud of her now. Not because she completed her sentence, though she did. Not because she stayed out of trouble, though she has. But because she chose to become someone different. She chose accountability over entitlement. She chose growth over comfort. Dad, I'm sorry for all of it. I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry, too, for not being the father you needed. Judge Caprio leaned forward. Miss Marchetti, I want to leave you with something. You came into this courtroom 4 months ago and struck a peace officer because you believed you were untouchable. You screamed about your father's position as if it made you royalty. You endangered 2 children and verbally abused the woman who protected them. I was wrong about everything. You were. But being wrong isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning. The question is always what comes next. Whether you return to your old life of privilege and protection, or whether you build something better. I want to build something better, Your Honor. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I know it starts with showing up every morning at that crosswalk. With remembering Maya's face when she told me she was scared. With understanding that Deputy Webb is a person, not a prop. Deputy Webb was standing near the side door where he always stood. Isabella turned to face him. Deputy Webb, I know I apologized in my letter, but I wanted to say it here. In the same room where I hit you 4 months ago. I am deeply, truly sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because my father made me. Because I hurt you. I disrespected you. I treated you like you didn't matter. The deputy nodded slowly. Thank you, Miss Marchetti. I hope you can forgive me someday. I already have. Judge Caprio picked up his gavel. Miss Marchetti, I'm remitting the suspended portion of your fine. You've completed your requirements and demonstrated genuine transformation. But remember, accountability isn't a punishment. It's a gift. It's the thing that lets us become better than we were. Don't waste it. I won't, Your Honor. I promise. Case closed. The gavel fell. The sound echoed through the courtroom. And in that moment, a young woman who had once believed she was above the law discovered that the only thing that truly matters is the person you choose to become. The aftermath unfolded quietly over the following months. Patricia Coleman submitted a formal recommendation to the City Council. It proposed expanding the School Safety Coalition's volunteer program, requiring all traffic offenders in school zones to complete mandatory service hours. The council approved it unanimously. Mayor Marchetti publicly supported the initiative. He also announced a new policy. Any attempt by his office to influence legal proceedings would be immediately disclosed to the public and the press. He called it the Accountability Transparency Act. Isabella continued volunteering, not because she had to, because she wanted to. One morning, 6 months after her hearing, she stood at the Westminster and Broad intersection with her stop sign raised. Maya and David Torres approached the crosswalk. Maya saw her and smiled. Hi, Miss Isabella. Hi, Maya. Hi, David. Ready to cross? Yep. Isabella held up her sign and stepped into the street. Traffic stopped. The children crossed safely. Carmen Torres waved from the other side. Isabella waved back. It was a small moment. Unremarkable to anyone passing by. But to Isabella, it meant everything. Because she had learned what her father tried to teach her too late, and what Judge Caprio had forced her to understand. Authority is not for sale. It is for service. And the only privilege worth having is the privilege of doing better than you did yesterday. If you believe justice should be earned, not bought, subscribe to All Rise and tell us where you're watching from. Dramatization for storytelling and education, not legal advice or reporting.